Welcome to Horror Year, where every story is a journey into the unknown. If you're brave enough to face your darkest fears and uncover the most chilling tales, you've come to the right place. So, dim the lights, turn up the volume, and subscribe to Horror Year. Your journey into terror begins now. Long-haul trucker Eric had always trusted the open road more than the stories that came with it. Superstitions about haunted highways and ghostly encounters were just campfire tales to pass the time on lonely nights. But in the fall of 2017, as his route took him down the infamous Devil's Highway, Route 666, winding through the Arizona desert, Eric would learn that some legends are more than just words. On that desolate moonlit stretch of road, the silence was not as empty as it seemed, and the shadows harbored something far more terrifying than he could ever imagine. Long-haul trucker Eric found himself on Route 666, a lonely route that wound through the Arizona desert, one clear fall night in 2017. Regionally referred to as the Devil's Highway, Route 666 has a well-deserved reputation for being haunted. There were ghoulish stories about the road's past, including phantom cars, unexplained disappearances, and ghostly apparitions. But up until that night, Eric wasn't the kind to believe in superstitions. He had been traveling for hours, the unending black ribbon of road ahead illuminated by the faint glimmer of his truck's headlights. His eyelids were becoming heavy, and the loneliness was heightened by the desert's immense emptiness. No vehicles in sight, and for miles, no indications of life. Just the odd howl of the wind and the unsettling silence of the wide highway. His radio crackled as midnight drew near, a hiss of static piercing the stillness. Eric fiddled with the dial, but there were just weak whispers in the static instead of stations. He put it down to the location's remoteness and carried on driving. The headlights on his pickup suddenly flickered. His motor stuttered briefly before roaring back to life, and the dashboard lights dimmed. Before he saw it, Eric ignored his racing heart. There was a guy ahead, standing in the middle of the road. It was a woman with wild, disheveled dark hair, wearing a long, ragged white gown. As his truck sped at her, she remained motionless and continued to stare at him. Eric instantly applied the brakes, causing the tires to squeal as the vehicle came to a complete stop just a few steps away from the woman. But she was gone when Eric looked up once more. His pulse pounded in his ears as he looked around the road, taking little breaths of breath. She was nowhere to be found, nor was anyone else. Shaken, Eric told himself that his thoughts were just the product of weariness. Taking a big breath, he turned the truck on and drove back out onto the street. Less than a mile along the road, the radio began to crackle once more. The whispers were more audible this time. The truck's cabin was filled with faint, distorted voices, muffled as if they were speaking from another world. "Help! Me!" a voice cried out. The blood in Eric ran cold. Tightening his grasp on the steering wheel, he attempted to dispel the growing fear. But then he spotted her again, the white woman, in his rearview mirror. With her head cocked abnormally to one side, her sunken eyes were fixed on him as she stood in the middle of the road. In a desperate attempt to escape whatever this was, he floored it. With the engine roaring, his truck raced down the deserted highway. But no matter how quickly he drove, the figure in the mirror seemed to get closer and closer. The cab's temperature plummeted abruptly. His breath started to show, floating in midair like a cloud. Though the night in the desert should have been warm, his hands were chilly. Then he heard it, a humming sound from the passenger seat that was musical and delicate. Eric carefully turned his head, his heart skipping a beat. She was seated just beside him. The Caucasian lady. Her eyes were dark holes, her lips stretched into a twisted smile, and her pale face was inches from his. Her single word was mumbled, "Stop." The truck veered off the road as Eric violently wrenched the steering wheel. As it came to a stop in a dust cloud, he opened his eyes to find the woman was vanished. Trembling and saturated in perspiration, he staggered weakly off the truck. He was alone and in complete darkness as he stood there in the middle of the desert. The road in front of us was deserted as though nothing had occurred. However, just as he was catching his breath, he heard the gentle hum carried by the breeze once more. Years later, at roadside eateries, Eric would narrate the tale to other truck drivers. While others would shrug it off, others would relate their own experiences with paranormal roadways. However, Eric never got back on Route 666 because he discovered on that desolate stretch of road that some legends are cautions rather than just myths. And occasionally, the horrors that stalk the highways outweigh any actual threat. Not all journeys conclude at the point of arrival. All right, that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think about today's video? Do you have any tips or ideas you want to share? Let me know in the comments. Also, what topics would you like to see me cover next? I'm always open to suggestions, so drop your ideas down below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.